I'm Adam Driggers, and this is Beneath the Surface, a channel designed to encourage deeper engagement with the Word of God. Today I want to answer the question, can angels die? The question comes from Daniel 7, where we're introduced to four beasts that are summoned by the four winds of heaven to stand before the Ancient of Days. It's a courtroom scene. The four beasts are the accused. The Ancient of Days, the judge in the scene, takes his seat among thrones, and before him are an immeasurable crowd of witnesses to witness the judgment of the four beasts. Daniel writes this in verses 9 and 10. As I looked, thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames. Its wheels were burning fire. A stream of fire issued and came out from before him. 1,000,000 served him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court sat in judgment, and the books were open. Now, a couple of things stick out to me. First, the Ancient of Days takes a seat among thrones in the plural. Additionally, we're told the court sat in judgment. Now, the word is defined as council of judges by the Dictionary of Biblical Languages. It's explicit. There are multiple judges. Now, this might come as a surprise to some, but it shouldn't. Other passages describe similar scenes. Psalm 82:1. God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. Now, the idea of God sitting in a council is not exclusive to the Old Testament. John records something similar in the Revelation. This is chapter 4, verses 2 through 4. And at once I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne stood in heaven, with one seated on the throne. And he who sat there had the appearance of jasper and carnelian, and around the throne was a rainbow that had the appearance of an emerald. Around the throne were 24 thrones, and seated on the thrones were 24 elders, clothed in white garments with golden crowns on their heads. Now, there are other passages as well, but I think these will suffice for what I'm doing here. God sits amid a council. Now, lest you think I'm implying that God has equals, I want to add a couple more passages. Psalm 89, verses 5 through 7. Let the heavens praise your wonders, O Lord, your faithfulness in the assembly of the holy ones. For who in the skies can be compared to the Lord? Who among the heavenly beings is like the Lord? A God greatly to be feared in the council of the holy ones, and awesome above all who are around him. So while God sits in the midst of a council, he is the head of the council, and he is without equal. Those who sit around him worship him. Revelation 4, 9 through 11. And whenever the living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to him who is seated on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him who is seated on the throne and worship him who lives forever and ever. They cast their crowns before the throne, saying, Worthy are you, O Lord and God, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they existed and were created. Now that we have established the characters of the court, God is most high, and he's surrounded by a council of holy ones, collectively referred to as the divine council, we should now turn our attention to the four beasts. They are generally thought of as representing four kingdoms, though there's no real overwhelming consensus on which four kingdoms they represent. Two popular views are these. The first one, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. And then a second popular view is Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and then the Seleucid Empire. Now, there are several variations of this, so forgive me if I left your view out. An exhaustive treatment of the various views of the four beasts is not the point here. It's too much for a video like this. But what I hope to do is to guide you towards something that will make the passage more comprehensible. This is something I address extensively in my book, 6 Rules to Understand the Revelation. There in chapters 1 and 2, I reveal the unseen realm, the supernatural players on the stage of world history, and the cosmic battle that rages behind the veil. These four beasts are part of the unseen realm. They are supernatural entities. They are four of the major players in opposition to God. Daniel is describing a heavenly courtroom scene in which God judges the rebellious sons of God. Again, I refer to Psalm 82, where God sits in the midst of the gods to hold judgment. There he judges the gods for not ruling justly. He describes their penalty. Psalm 82, 6 and 7. I said, you are gods, sons of the Most High, all of you. Nevertheless, like men, you shall die and fall like any prince. The four beasts of Daniel 7 are the gods being judged in Psalm 82. They face the same death sentence handed down by the same judge and council of holy ones. These two chapters tell the same story. Daniel and the psalmist were shown the same event. Other passages also relate to this event, but these connections can or will have to be explored later. Now, one of the four beasts in Daniel 7 is killed immediately. This is verses 11 and 12. I looked then because of the sound of the great words that the horn was speaking. And as I looked, the beast was killed, and its body destroyed and given over to be burned with fire. As for the rest of the beast, their dominion was taken away, but their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. So 3 of the beasts have their authority stripped, but are given a temporary stay on execution. The 4th beast, however, is killed and given over to be burned with fire. Now that brings us to the question that we want to answer. Can angels die? But first I'd like to address and do this briefly. What does it look like for a supernatural entity, a power behind the scenes of our physical world, to be put to death? Well, remarkably, it's not too surprising. They're sent to Sheol. They are locked in the underworld until the day of final judgment. Now, Sheol is a Hebrew word that describes the underworld or the place of the dead. It includes terms like the grave and death, the bottomless pit, and sometimes the deep. In the New Testament, words like hell, Hades, and the abyss are linked to Sheol. So let me give you an example. In Luke chapter 8, Jesus meets a demon-possessed man who is full of demons, collectively called Legion. When Jesus commands them to leave the man, they beg Jesus not to send them to the abyss. Luke 8:30 and 31. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. And they begged him not to command them to depart into the abyss. Now, the word abyss in Luke 8 is the same word used in Revelation 9:1 and Revelation 20, verse 1, where it's translated as bottomless pit. Now, let's go a bit further and look at Jude 6. Jude explains what happens when a fallen angel is killed. He describes their existence in the underworld. This is, again, Jude, verse 6. And the angels who did not stay within their own position of authority, but left their proper dwelling, he has kept in eternal chains under gloomy darkness until the judgment of the great day. In other words, they're held in the underworld. Peter says practically the same thing. 2 Peter 2:4. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment. So this is the concept that should come to mind when we read about the 4th beast of Daniel 7, which was killed and given over to be burned. He was cast into hell to await final judgment, into Sheol, the underworld. Many scholars claim that both Jude and Peter are pulling from the ideas expressed in the book of 1 Enoch, where the underworld is described in detail. So let's explore why they come to that conclusion. In Enoch chapter 22, the underworld is described as having 4 shafts. This is Enoch chapter 22, verse 2. And there were 4 hollow places in it, deep and very smooth. 3 of them were dark and 1 bright, and there was a fountain of water in its midst. Now the chapter goes on to explain that these 4 hollow places are for the purpose of dividing the spirits of people. The bright one is for the righteous. You might recall the story of Abraham's bosom from Luke 16, where Jesus describes a similar division. Lazarus and the rich man are separated by a great gulf. Lazarus has access to water, but the rich man does not. Enoch 22 describes the place of human spirits in the underworld, which was changed by the cross for the righteous, and that will be a topic for a separate video. But anyway, you could see its connection to Abraham's bosom from the story of Jesus. There's a place for the righteous, separated from the place of the wicked. Now, Enoch 18 and 21 describe another area in the underworld reserved for fallen angels. This is Enoch 18, 11, and 12. And I saw a deep abyss with columns of heavenly fire, and among them I saw columns of fire fall, which were beyond measure, alike towards the height and towards the depth. And beyond that abyss I saw a place which had no firmament of the heaven, and no firmly founded earth beneath it. There was no water upon it, and no birds, but it was a waste and a horrible place. So notice that the place had no heaven above it and no earth beneath it. That's a decent way to describe a bottomless pit. He describes this as a place where fallen angels are kept. Enoch later describes the angels as stars who are bound in the abyss. Now, I discussed that concept of angels as stars in detail in 6 Rules to Understand the Revelation. Let's look at Enoch 21, 2 and 3. And I saw there something horrible. I saw neither a heaven above nor a firmly founded earth, but a place chaotic and horrible. And there I saw 7 stars of the heaven bound together in it, like great mountains and burning with fire. So again, the stars represent angels, as is expressed later in the chapter by the angel who is accompanying Enoch. And here in this passage, they are bound in a place burning with fire. Now notice also the connection between the descriptions in Jude 6, 2 Peter 2, 4, and this passage that follows from Enoch chapter 10. This is verses 4 through 6. And again, the Lord said to Raphael, bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the desert which is in Dudael, and cast him therein, and place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face that he may not see light. And on the day of the great judgment he shall be cast into the fire. Now, while the passages from Enoch connect precisely to Jude 6 and 2 Peter 2, 4, the connection I want to make is to the 4th beast of Daniel 7. Enoch, along with Peter and Jude, expresses what it means for a fallen son of God to be killed and burned with fire. They are bound with chains and locked away in Sheol, and that's precisely what we are to think about the 4th beast. He's locked away in chains in the bottomless pit. He's cast into Sheol. His 3 companions are stripped of their authority, but their death sentence has stayed for a while. So let's wrap this up. Can angels die? Yes, fallen angels die. They're judged and killed. And their deaths are very much like the Bible's description of death in the Old Testament. Angels who die go into Sheol, where they await final judgment. This is what Daniel 7 communicates about the rebellious spiritual elements. The 4 beasts are 4 fallen Elohim, fallen angels, who have rebelled against God's sovereignty. They are called to stand account before the Ancient of Days. While they represent the major powers of the natural world, they also stand apart from them. They existed before the nations represented in Daniel 7, and they remained after those nations had faded. One of them is sent into the underworld, having been sentenced to death by God. He's killed. Now, I can't help but think about connections to other passages. For example, in Psalm 110, verse 1, we're told that the Son of God will sit at the right hand of God until all his enemies are placed under his feet. Now, this implies that there's a period of time during which this happens. There's a passing of time between the enthronement and the final defeat of all God's enemies. Now, this may correspond to the stay afforded to the remaining 3 beasts. There may also be a connection to Revelation 4 and 5 that it's really too extensive to get into here. Now, furthermore, I can't help but consider a connection between the 4th beast and Satan. He is bound in chains and placed in the bottomless pit, the abyss or Sheol, where he will spend a considerable amount of time before he's used to gather all of God's enemies to the final judgment. That's all in Revelation chapter 20. Again, think of Psalm 110:1 and the passing of time there. Now, is it possible that the 4th beast is Satan? I think it is. This would then make it possible that the remaining 3 beasts represent Gog and Magog, whom Satan gathers for the final judgment when he's released in Revelation 20 to gather Gog and Magog. Now, you can find out more by subscribing here to stay up to date with new videos that will discuss this and related topics. I also discuss these connections in my book, 6 Rules to Understand the Revelation. And a related course to the book is coming soon, so stay tuned for those updates. Either way, can angels die? Yes. Fallen angels are killed. They're judged by God and sit into Sheol. Now, if you like this content, hit the like button. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it in the comments, and thanks for watching.